Okay, so I am back for part 3 of my side effects of epilepsy videos. It has been a fat minute since I made the last one. I kind of had a bit of a breakdown. I'm just getting sick of this. Not like recording, but epilepsy. But I can't really do much about that. This third one is the social side effects of it. The first one, just getting right into it, is being self-conscious about things. Like, I made the first 2 videos and I didn't really care, but this one, like I said, I completely went through something. I have no idea how long it's actually been. But I don't know, I felt like garbage afterwards. And I don't know if I already said self-conscious, but like I put lipstick on. I kind of changed what I was wearing. I covered up my scar. And I kind of mentioned how like you act, I didn't mention, but like you act on impulse, and I did not want to record this without looking better because I'm super self-conscious, especially in social situations. Because, you know, I have enough going on, and it doesn't help when you overthink literally everything. And I was like, yeah, people watch this even though I don't see them. So now I look slightly better, and I fixed my light. My light went off in the last video. So yeah, just diving right into that. Self-conscious is the first one. The second one I have, that's I think I might actually save that for last, because that's like the biggest one. I don't really know what categories these fell into, so I put them as social, but big ones are you're not able to do everyday things that other people can do. So, you know, I have not working and not driving. You know, you need a car to get around to do things with other people. And, you know, not working is definitely a social aspect because, you know, you can't get a job typically if you're having seizures. But I've also noticed that not having seizures, you also cannot get a job. But you have to disclose that you have epilepsy if you're still having issues. So I was having simple partial seizures, and I thought they were just, I knew they were auras, but I didn't realize they were seizures. So anytime I applied for a job, I had to disclose that at any random point, I could start acting completely weird and not have control over it. And that definitely made it so I didn't get jobs. Like, there's a job right down the street from me where I had work experience. It's a gas station. So I had experience in preparing food and retail. And I told the dude at the end I had epilepsy. Like, he seemed really interested. Then all of a sudden he didn't after I told him that. And he's like, yeah, I'll call you back. I waited like 2 days and he didn't call me back. So I called the store and he was busy. So I called the store the next day and he was busy. And finally, I think like after a week, because I'd given up on calling, he finally called me back. He was like, yeah, I gave the position to someone else, you know, I just didn't feel like you had enough experience. And it's like, that's definitely not the reason, because I definitely did. And then still in the windows for like months, they were still hiring. I tried applying again, and he was like, you just don't have enough experience. And it's like, but you need workers, and it's easy enough for me to learn this sort of thing. And I always get into story time with these ones. I noticed there was a new guy working there. He looked just of age. You have to be 18. And I asked him, I was like, so, I forget what I said, but he said it was his first job. And on top of that, like, he didn't even give us the correct change. And I was just like mind blown. Like, I don't have enough experience, but this dude is clearly new. It's his first job, and he didn't even do it right, which, you know, I understand it being a new job and everything, but I wasn't hired because I didn't have enough experience. But I feel like I would have had that job if I didn't tell him I had epilepsy. And so, yeah, that's a big social thing, is not necessarily not working, but not getting jobs. And if you're having seizures, trust me, that's impossible. The next thing I have, which plays into that, is being bullied or discrimination. I had a job. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say where I worked, but it was a sub shop that is only in upstate New York. And I ended up having an aura at work where I like broke down crying, and we couldn't finish closing the store. It was me and someone who was hired the same day as me. We'd only been working for a month, and we were required to close the store on our own. The bathroom toilet had overflowed. The entire place was flooded. We weren't allowed to use the sinks or anything. And so we literally had 15 minutes. We weren't allowed to work past 15 minutes or we wouldn't get paid. We had 15 minutes to close, and they had just finished fixing it. So we had to wash all the dishes from the day, and we had to fill up the mops, clean everything, shut down the whole store in 15 minutes. And I got completely overwhelmed because it's a big thing with epilepsy, is stress just triggers you. And I ended up freaking out. And my manager, she straight up told me, she was like, I don't think you can handle the job, so we're gonna cut your hours. And I was like, I can handle this job just fine. I've been doing just fine. That was just my epilepsy, and it was a very stressful day. Otherwise, I would have been fine. We've done it before. And she cut my hours. I was working a part-time job at about 11 hours a week, minimum wage. So I was barely making money, and other people were getting way more hours than me. A 15-year-old, she was getting more hours than me, and I think she was working, it was so screwed, I think she was working like illegal hours as well, like way too many. But I was told by my manager that I couldn't work as many hours because of this episode I had had. And then she said, due to my health issues, she would have to cut my hours back if I couldn't handle it. And I was like, I can handle it. But she didn't care. And they wouldn't let me work alone, which is understandable, until, of course, they didn't have anyone to close with me. So then they just made me work alone, which completely baffles me. But, yeah, that job was definitely the worst. There was a bunch of other stuff going on too, but, that was a big one. It was the most stressful job I've ever had, and for a part-time job, only working 11 hours a week, it made me miserable. And since I couldn't drive, I had to walk every day, and it was a mile away, so it was a mile there, working, and then a mile back. One time I worked an 8-hour shift and didn't even get a break, not a lunch break, nothing, because it's a food restaurant, so I can just eat whenever I want. But if you're on a break and they need your help, they just pull you from your break. But I didn't even get a break. And on top of that, like I said, always story time. My first job I had ended up having a seizure at work because I got overly stressed. And I had been seizure free for a while. And then, but I like removed myself. I told them, I was like, I feel really off. I went into the break room, had a seizure. They didn't really think anything of it. Then I came back to work, and like I said in a previous video, one seizure can trigger a whole bunch more, because then your brain is like, haha, I'm back. And so I'd ended up, I started having seizures again, but I had a seizure in a different break room, and they were like, I was working like 26-hour weeks, and they had told me, okay, you can't come back until you get a doctor's note to come back. So I got a doctor's note like that weekend, and that was at the beginning of December of 2018. And then got my doctor's note so they could start scheduling me again. I gave it at about the middle of December. And up until the middle of March, they still had not put me on the schedule. They didn't fire me, of course, because, you know, then that would be discrimination. They just stopped scheduling me. So I went almost 3 months without just being put on the schedule. So finally I resigned. But since I didn't quit, you know, there was no benefits or anything. And yeah, that happened on my first job. My second job, I showed up every single day. Anytime they called me in, I showed up. I stayed late. But I missed 2 or 3 days of work because I was in the hospital. That was the only time I missed work when I worked at that job. And I came back the day after I got out of the hospital, and I worked at a store, and it was Black Friday. So straight out of the hospital, I worked an 8-hour shift on Black Friday. And I ended up staying late because they needed me to. And I did that. And I still lost my job because it was a seasonal position. And they kept a bunch of them because they needed employees, but they didn't keep me due to my attendance issues. And the job I have now is by far the best job, but I resigned yesterday because I'm having health issues. But for once, it was my own choice, and they told me once I get better, I can reapply, and then I'll probably get my job back. But that is the first time, like, that's ever happened, and I know not working is a really big social issue. And yeah, that's also discrimination that falls into that. And then quickly with the bullying, when I was going to school, I was having seizures, and people would shove me into lockers and kick me when I was having seizures, and I was called Twitch, and then a mean word that rhymed with Twitch and started with a B. That was my nickname around school. Like, people are mean. On top of that comes, it's hard to make friends. People are scared of epilepsy. They don't understand it, and they don't want to deal with it. And the one I have after that is the misconception of boundaries. It's very hard to understand boundaries. You have to physically set them with me and tell me where the line is drawn, because otherwise there will be no boundaries, and I will just let anything happen. And that falls for me too. Like, I have a hard time setting my own boundaries, and then other people also don't. And I have a wicked, horrible sense of humor that I get from a family member. I won't say which one, but if they're watching this, they know. But I will use that humor around anyone, and if I don't know when to stop. And on top of that, people get annoyed with me because I talk about my epilepsy a lot. And it's like, that defines who I am. I've been having seizures for 6 years now. It's a big part of my life. And I need to explain things to people because there's always that fear that you might have another seizure. And you have to tell people, like, I might have a seizure. And I tell people about my epilepsy and they get mad about it. And it's like, all you have to do is tell me to shut up. But people don't. And it makes it very, very difficult to make friends. A lot of people just get annoyed with me. And I've also heard that this is very common. That's why I added it. But the last thing I have for this, and the worst one that I have first, because it's the first thing that comes to my mind, but it's also the most important, so I saved it for last, is the loss of friendships. It's very hard to deal with people who are epileptic. Family kind of has to, but it's hard enough for me to make friends. And, hold on. It's even harder to keep them. I've lost a lot of friends in my lifetime because my epilepsy gets a little too overwhelming. And like I said, there's no boundaries set, so I don't know when to stop putting that on other people. And as horrible as that sounds, it's understandable. I mean, it's hard enough for me to deal with me, and if someone needs a break from dealing with me, I would definitely give that to them. But I've lost a lot of friends because they didn't want to deal with me. I had a best friend for 7 years, and me and her stopped talking for 1.5 years. I don't think it was because of my epilepsy, but it definitely played a part in it because of the way I acted and stuff. And I don't use my epilepsy as an excuse, really, but it does play a big role in who I am, like I said before. And I have a lot of issues because of it. Like, I listed all these side effects in my other videos, and they all apply to me. That's why I can explain them so well, but I've lost a lot of people because of my epilepsy, and even family has given up on me. Like, I was told I was faking my seizures when I started having them, and like my whole family turned against me. They all thought I was nuts. And I lost a lot of friends because of how I acted and how scary it was. I had a friend tell me that I'm undesirable as a person because of how over emotional I am, and I have health issues that make me undesirable as a person. Someone who I called a friend told me that. And I've had people say really mean things to me that were my friends. And like, the best friendship I've ever had was my best friend that I talk about in these videos a lot. He was the only one who like understood my epilepsy, but a lot of friends don't. And that's another reason why I started making these videos, is because a lot of people don't understand it and they don't care to understand it. And I know so many people who have told me about how they had friends who just left because it's hard to deal with this kind of stuff. But some people leave because they don't want to deal with it, because they're selfish, and other people leave because they can't deal with it, because it's too much. And those are two totally different things. But one definitely hurts a lot more than the other, and I'm sure you can tell which one it is. Because when people start being rude to you about a health issue that you cannot control, it's really difficult. And like I said, I've been home all day, every day. I almost died. I don't know what today's date is, the 12th? I almost died on April 1st. Like, I was having seizures for 5 hours straight. And I really couldn't do anything for the few days after. And I had no one, not a single friend, even ask if I was okay. Because these people that I call my friends and stuff, they don't want to deal with my epilepsy. I had friends that I treat more like family check up on me, and that was only 2 people. And Like, I told people about it, but no one checked up on me afterwards. And it's like, that's the kind of thing, that's the biggest social issue that I really wanted to talk about. Because a lot of people don't realize quite how bad that side effect of epilepsy is. That really plays into things. And it also makes us blunt to people. It makes us not want to make friends. And I know this is like really off topic, but this is still the last one. But we really do like lose a lot of friends throughout this process, especially older people with epilepsy. I've noticed the older I've gotten, the worse it has gotten. Because I still act really immature sometimes. And at the same time, I matured a lot younger because I had to deal with stuff like this. Because I was yanked by the hair and thrown into the real world. Because I had all these health issues, you know. While other people were dealing with homework, I was dealing with doctors and hospitals. And like my dad, he was like, yeah, I've been in the hospital 3 times. And it's like, I've probably been in the hospital more than 20 in the past 5 years. It is really hard to deal with this kind of stuff, and a lot of people don't want to deal with it. And people, it's the worst because it's people that you called your friends. And that is the biggest form of betrayal that you can go through. And like I said, I understand people leaving if they can't handle it. But if people just leave because they want to be mean and they choose not to handle it because they just don't want to, that's a different story. Because there have been people that I didn't put my health issues on and stuff, but they just left because they didn't want to be associated with the epileptic kid. You know, people leave because they don't want to be associated with you, and that really sucks the most. That's gonna be all for my story time this time. But yeah, those are the social side effects of epilepsy, and that last one is definitely the biggest one. And if anyone has similar stories or stories they want to tell, let me know. Like, I'm totally willing to have someone message me and be like, let me tell my epilepsy story, record a video and send it to me. I'll post it. I don't care. I don't care if it's an hour long, I'll still put it up. You know, comment things, tell me things you want me to talk about. You know, keep following the channel, send it to your friends. Send it to those friends that left, you know. I don't care. But yeah, if anyone wants to say anything, go for it. Because I read all 5 comments that I've gotten, you know. But I definitely get excited when I see someone subscribed or someone commented or someone liked my video, because that means someone understands. And that's the best thing to know with epilepsy. So all of you have a nice day, evening, or night. And I don't know when the next time I'll post a video is, but I'll see you then.